Today on episode number 461 of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements, which you can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/461, we've got some really cool podcasting news. We've got a behind the scenes of my podcast launch that I'm going to be launching here. We've got a phenomenal because of my podcast story from Nick Seuberling, and we're going to get some podcasting advice from my mom. Hit it, ladies!
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your very own personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, look, we talk about all things podcasting. We help you massage your message. We help you tackle the technology. We help you flatten the learning curve and get you on the road to pain-free podcasting. Our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. And if you'd like to contact me, go out to schoolofpodcasting.com/contact. And we have some really interesting news on podcasting. This is courtesy of a website, ChinaTopics.com. Now, China Topics is ChinaTopics.com. And it's actually an article about SoundCloud and how they're finally out of beta. Whoop-de-doo. In a nutshell, not a huge SoundCloud person. I've talked about that in the past, and I might talk about it in the future. To me, it's a little weird that it took them so many years to get out of beta, but they are out of beta. But here's the interesting chunk in that article talking about SoundCloud. They say Spotify. Now, if you're like, what's a Spotify? Spotify is a music streaming service, kind of like Pandora, only it's more a la carte. Like I can say, I want to listen to whatever right now. And so in this article, it says Spotify was reported to be coming out with its own podcasting platform soon, as well, in addition, in this case, to SoundCloud. So in other words, Spotify is getting into the podcasting world as well to corner a slice of the market. It is yet to be known whether this platform, meaning Spotify, could deliver, but it only goes to show that podcasting has exerted a tremendous influence on the business models of such audio streaming platforms. Very interesting. So if that happens, I would think it's only a matter of time until something like Pandora, another music streaming service, would get involved because they're going to need content. So it should be fun to watch. We keep hearing these rumors. That one didn't sound like a rumor. It says it's been reported, which I guess is kind of a baby rumor, but that was kind of interesting to see. And if you're, again, new to the show, I'm always looking for two things. One is called a last 5 and 5. What were the last 5 podcasts you listened to? Not so much what are your favorite 5 podcasts, but just what were the last 5 you listened to. Tell us a little bit about it and where we can find it. And of course, tell us a little bit about your podcast if you have one. And then the other thing I'm always looking for is what I call because of my podcast stories. This is, hey, I couldn't have done this except because of my podcast. I was able to open that door. I was able to do something that I wouldn't have been able to do because of my podcast. And today we have one from Nick Seuberling from SBNT.TV.
Dave Jackson, what's happening? It's Nick Seuberling here from Inside the Jungle and SPNT.TV. And I just wanted to chime in and fill you in on something that happened recently because of my podcasts. I host a show primarily about the Cincinnati Bengals called Inside the Jungle. And Thursday night, April 30th, was the first round of the NFL draft. And each year, we usually do a live show during the draft. This year, we took it to a whole new level. One of my co-hosts, who actually lives in the city of Cincinnati, recommended to me, he said, "Hey, Subes, why don't we take the show on the road and try and broadcast on location somewhere?" And I said, that's fine. That'd be great. I had never done a remote broadcast before with the podcast, so I thought it would be really exciting, really cool. Maybe get a chance to meet some friends of the podcast and fans that live in the area. So sure, why not? And a couple weeks later, he said he had reached out to Lachey's Bar in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, if that name rings a bell, Lachey, it is actually owned by Nick Lachey of 98 Degrees fame, and actually co-owned with his brother as well, Drew Lachey from 98 Degrees. So yeah, we were there. I will say the show got off to a rocky start. I could not get my co-host, who was in California. I couldn't get the audio into my headset for some reason. I was actually for the first time using a brand new audio mixer, and I was borrowing 4 ATR 2100s from another podcaster, and I could not, I had so many issues with this new mixer. It was just a disaster from the get-go. The script went out the window real quick, and it was a rough night. So finally, about an hour in, I'd had a couple beverages or two, and I finally relaxed. I look over, and in walks the one and only Nick Lachey. And so it was pretty cool. Nick didn't want to come on our show, which is totally fine, totally understandable, but he was kind enough at the end of the night to take a picture with all of us. And it was pretty neat. I shook his hand and told him thanks for letting us have our show there at his bar. It was pretty cool. So all in all, though the night was very frustrating and flustering, in the end, I think it ended up turning out pretty well, and people enjoyed it. We had about 100 people watching us live in our chat room. We still were able to stream the show live, and so that was cool. That is pretty exciting news. I got a chance to meet Nick Lachey, all because of my podcast.
So I went over to, thank you, Nick, by the way. Really good guy. Also, you can hear about his, what he would call a train wreck. If you go over to Podcasters Group Therapy, I believe it's episode number 12, and he talks about live podcasting from a location, and it really gets into the nitty-gritty of what happened, and he was using this new mixer and this whole 9 yards. Check that out, Podcasters Group Therapy. I'll have links to all this stuff out at schoolofpodcasting.com/461. But I'm at sbnt.tv. Oh, and I discovered, I think, what will be one of my new favorite podcasts, and that is, folks, I love this, The Ben and Nick Show. It's awesome. Check this out.
Welcome to the Ben and Nick Show, episode 7. My name is Ben, and here's Daddy.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
I'm good.
It's been a while since we've done a podcast.
Yeah.
What is it that you want to talk about this week?
Yeah.
Should we talk about Nana Camp?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. You want to talk about something else first?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like, Notre Dame.
You want to talk about Notre Dame?
Awesome. So, again, if we... No, stop the music. No. Can't play that music. It's not legal. But just think about what that's going to be like when Ben is like, 35 and he's got a little baby on his knee. And you're like, remember when we used to do this? And of course, then you'll listen to it on your watch or your earpiece, or it'll be embedded in your forehead, something that will make you listen to a podcast. But really cool stuff. And again, it's not always about building your business, making money. There are things that you can do just to document where you're at, things like that. We'll be giving you some tips today about starting a podcast. And I'm actually getting ready to start a podcast. And I met the guys at Clammr. Now, what the heck is a Clammr? A Clammr is an 18-second spot. Here is one from Michael Hyatt's This Is Your Life.
In life, it's not the people that are smart that succeed necessarily, or the people that are the most experienced, or the people that have the most talent, but often it's the people that persist.
There you go, 18 seconds. Here's one from last week's show with me talking about do you have 5 number 1 priorities? And then roughly in a nutshell, we were to summarize a season, which is 13 shows, 10 hours to consume. I've watched all 7 seasons. That means for 70 hours, I was sitting and watching the show. 70. Just think of what I could have done. All right, so we get the idea. I like Clammr. I think it's cool because it's a creative tool that allows you to, as a fan, you could join Clammr and share this show. You could share podcasterstudio.com. You could share the Audacity. You could share whatever you want, and people can follow you. So it's a little bit like Twitter for audio. And so I contacted the guys at Clammr, and I'm like, you guys should do a show with like the top, 20, top 50, whatever, Clammrs of the week. And they're like, that's good. Awesome. Why don't you do it? And I went, okay. And I'm not getting paid, in case you're wondering. But I thought, you know what? There's a couple things I want to experiment with. And if you know me, I like to experiment. So, but there are some questions I had to ask myself, and these are things, what can you learn from this? So number one, you got to be able to answer the question, why? Why in the world would I want to start another podcast? I got a bunch. Go over to powerofpodcasting.com, and you'll see there are a ton of podcasts that I already do, all of them about podcasting. And so why would I do this one? Well, it's exposure to the School of Podcasting, because I will announce that I'm Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com in that show. And so this would be exposure somewhat outside of the podcast about podcasting space, but yet people that are using Clammr are kind of looking for exposure, and that's my target audience. People that want to reach a global audience. Now, last week we talked about how often should you podcast? And I said, well, it depends on how much time you have to podcast. And that's why that whole thing about, having 70 hours to watch TV, but you don't have time to podcast. Well, hold on, turn off the TV. Now you got 70 hours to podcast. And I said, what you want to do is record a couple test shows and see exactly how long it will take to create an episode. And young William left a comment out at the School of Podcasting and said, hey, I picked Saturday. I guess I should have done this last. Well, I wasn't so much when do you pick to record, but how long does it take to do a show? And then you can say, do I have that much time each week, each month, how often you're ever going to publish a show? So for instance, let's say William had an hour on Saturday. Okay, well, I said it takes about 4 to 1 to do a podcast. So an hour to podcast means you can do a 15-minute show. 4 times 15 is 60. 60 is an hour. So you should do a 15-minute podcast. That's what I meant by that. When you figure out how long it takes to do a show, look at your schedule and say, okay, do I have this much time every week, every month, every bi-week, whatever it is, to do this? So I told the guys I need to do a couple episodes before I really figure out if I'm going to do this or not. And so I did that. And that's another question you have to ask yourself. How easy is it for you to create a podcast episode? I do a podcast called Weekly Web Tools that I almost quit because it was really hard to find stuff to talk about. And I found some new sources, and I like that show. I seem to have a decent little community going over there. Not huge numbers, but if you like to play with websites, check it out, weeklywebtools.com. But you have to ask yourself, how hard is it to create an episode? Because the harder it is, the more you're going to want to quit. Then I had to ask myself, how am I going to know if this podcast is successful? Now, so many people judge success by how much money you make. And that's fine. If you're a business and you're trying to drive traffic to your products, by all means, that is definitely a way to judge if your podcast is successful. But for me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a coupon for the School of Podcasting, and I can track, is anybody from that show using that coupon? Because again, my goal here is to get the School of Podcasting's name in front of people that might want more exposure. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a newsletter list that I will be promoting. And so I'll see how many people are signing up for the list. But I could also be getting paid in relationships. Because again, this might not be the same old people. It might be, right? Everybody that's on Clammr right now that I know knows me through this show. But I need to ask myself, how am I going to know if this is successful? Because if I can't figure that out, then how do I know if I should keep doing the show or not? Because it might not work. There's only one way to find out, and that's to press record. So I did a couple things, and here's the pros of this idea. It took me about 45 minutes. Now that seems weird because didn't you just say it takes a 4 to 1? Well, the show was about a half hour long, so it should take me about 2 hours. But what I did, my day job is I teach people technology. I teach a lot of Microsoft Office. I am an Excel uber nerd. So when the boys from Clammr sent me an Excel spreadsheet with the top liked Clammrs, I was able to mail merge that and turn it into a PDF with clickable links in next to no time. I basically listened to the 18-second clips, the Clammrs, and just commented on each one. And it took me about maybe 45 minutes to do a half-hour show. But let's think about this. Remember when we talked to about Brian from ProfitCastUniverse.com, the ProfitCast? Your podcast is going to be one of three things. It's either going to be cheap, it's going to be good, and its growth will either be quicker over time. So in my case, my show was quick to create, but that doesn't mean it's good. I might have that backwards. It's good, cheap to produce, and then quick to rise to fame, right? So here it wasn't, I don't know if it's good, because that's one of the cons. I don't have control over my content. And I realized that when I got to like number 26, and it's a rapper dropping F-bombs and N-bombs and B-bombs and any kind of everywhere a bomb. And I was like, okay, I guess we're an explicit podcast. So I don't have any control over the content. It doesn't take a lot of time to produce, but what do I have control over in this show would be what I add to like the little comments. If I want to be snarky, I could do that. But that would then do what? It would take more time. So now my 45-minute podcast is going to be closer to an hour, hour and a half, because I'm going to have to listen to all the Clammrs and come up with something witty to say about them or not. Think about my audience. My audience, I'm thinking, is used to 18-second snippets. I definitely want to get to the point. And this may be an example of less of me is a good thing. So the pros, it's easy content. It's given to me, easy to produce, and quick. The cons, I have no control over the content, and it's cost me $32. I had to buy a font, so my album art looked like the Clammr site, and it's going to cost me $10 a month. Well, let's think about how does this podcast tie into my overall goal of being a podcast consultant full-time and getting my student loans and all other loans paid off. That's the overall goal for Dave Jackson. Well, it doesn't. I spent money, and I'm spending more money a month, but it's a way to maybe get paid in relationships that might lead to more things. It's a way to get my podcast about podcasting potentially introduced to a whole new audience, because the Clammr guys have said they will help promote this. Okay, now you have my attention. So how do I know? How am I going to know if this is going to work or not? On paper, it's a big question mark. It's easy to produce. You know, depending on what I do, it may be great, it may not be. I have an idea of whoever wins the top spot, make a little badge for them to put on their website that says, hey, I was the top Clammr of the week. That's a little promotion. All sorts of ideas. The more ideas I have, the more time it's going to take. So those are some things to think about. Why am I doing this? How often will I publish? Well, I need to figure out how much time it takes to do one so I can figure out my schedule. How easy is it for me to find content, and how am I going to know if this is successful? What are the pros of the podcast? What are the cons? And then how does this apply? Does this podcast that's going to take up my time help me achieve my overall goal? And my answer is maybe. But because it's easy to do, because it shouldn't take a lot of time, I'm going to give it a shot. Now, one of the things I'm going to do, which if you've been listening to the show a while, may surprise you, and that is I'm a huge fan of Libsyn, LIBSYN.com. I'm a big fan of Blueberry, BLUBRY.com. Those are my top two media hosts. And over the last couple months, I've been looking at other media hosts. It's kind of my job as a podcast consultant to try to know as much about podcasting as I can. And there's always been one that always seemed to meet my criteria. I've always had criteria. This is what, if you want to be recommended by Dave Jackson, here's what you got to do as a media host. So number one, don't mess with my file. Don't rename it. Don't resample it. Don't mess with my ID3 tags. Whatever I upload is what I want to download. Don't limit the size of my audience. So don't shut off my downloads when I hit a certain bandwidth limit. Don't charge me for anything extra. And give me a budget that I can put into my budget. Give me an amount I can put into my budget, and then I can plan on it. Don't limit the size of my catalog. If I want to have an unlimited back catalog, let me do that. Don't take control of my feed. If I use your RSS feed, you better give me a way to redirect it. And for a while, I always thought Podbean did not have a way to redirect. Well, it turns out they do. My other things I need, give me stats so I know what's popular and what's not. Give me support. And I want you to charge me for the service so I know you're going to stick around. And so I have a double secret probation podcast that I won't bore you with the details. In a nutshell, I'm doing a show to make it as horrible as I can to see how many downloads a really, really, really bad podcast could be. And it's on Podbean. And in the past, I had a problem where my shows would not download. And that's with no real traffic. But I thought, you know what? These guys do meet my criteria. I'm going to have to give them a shot so I can talk about it firsthand. This is kind of where I say sometimes let me make the mistakes and then I'll tell you how to avoid them. So this show is going to be on Podbean, which seems really weird to say. But if I'm going to be honest, if I'm going to be a podcaster with integrity, I got to be able to try new things. So I will fill you in on how this works once this gets going. It's not in iTunes yet, by the way. And there's another thing. Just because I have an episode out doesn't mean I have to put it in iTunes. And it also means I don't have to wait till I have 3 episodes. Dr. Nina Seville Rockland does Win the Diet War. She got really high into New and Noteworthy with 1 episode in iTunes. That whole thing about you have to have 3 episodes, that's a myth. What it takes is a lot of downloads and a lot of subscribers. And Dr. Nina had a very popular blog. So when she told her blog, hey, go subscribe to my show and rate and review it in iTunes, she didn't need 3 episodes. Does it help? Sounds like it should on paper. I'm just saying it's not an absolute. So I will keep you posted as we move forward with the Clammr cast. Right now, it's not really public. If you go to clammrcast.com, you'll see you can sign up for the newsletter, and I'll let you know when it's out. I'm still playing with it. I'm tweaking it. But I've got my questions answered, and I'm going to give it a shot because, after all, sometimes there's only one way to find out, and that's to pull the trigger and press record.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As I record this episode, it is Mother's Day. In between you and me, Mother's Day is a day that kind of kicks me where it counts. There are 2 days that bother me. One is my birthday, and part of it is because, well, I'm getting old. And number 2 is I really miss my mom. My mom and I always had a tremendous time on my birthday. She always made me feel super, super special. My mom died when I was 24, and I don't want to bring down the podcast here. I'm not looking for a pity party. But being that it's Mother's Day, I'm thinking a lot about my mom today. And so I thought I would share. I shared this in my Overcoming Your Podcast Fears speech at Newbie Expo, and I thought I would share it here. And so let me give you a little behind the scenes of what was going on here, and I will share with you some podcasting advice from my mom. It is, my mom has had heart attack number 2. They have tried everything they can, but her lungs keep filling up with fluid. Here's the option. We're going to give you, if you want, we're going to put you on an experimental drug. It's kind of hard to go on. We're not sure if it's going to work, and it might be kind of hard to go off. And so we have to have a family meeting. Well, it's me, my older sister, and my older brother. My dad's a long-distance truck driver. He's not around. So we go in, and my mom asks us, hey, there's a chance this drug is going to, kill me. And I need your input on if I should go on life support or not. Well, that's a nice to do. Hi, nice to see you too, Mom. And so the seriousness of the meeting was like smog in the room. Like, oh, whoa, this is one of those kind of conversations. This is a new kind of family meeting. And to cut to the chase, my mom said, look, I'm not really interested in that. I'm not interested in life support. I know where I'm going. And my mom was not a person that liked to slow down. And when she had her first heart attack, they said, slow down. And this time they were saying, you need to stop. And I was like, oh, that was not my mom. And she was not really looking forward to that. So she was 59 at the time, and I was 24. And at the time I was like, you know what? Hey, Mom, you're indestructible. You have been my whole life. We got your back. Don't worry about it. But then she said, I want to talk to each one of you individually. And I went, well, okay. So, 2 of us went out of the room, and I think it was my brother was first, then my sister, then me being the youngest, the last. And I'm like, wow, this seems like if this was a movie, like a make-believe movie. This would be like one of those weird, like, deathbed kind of speeches. And I go in, and my mom starts talking to me, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a deathbed speech. How do I get out of this movie? Are you kidding me? And it was like the seriousness went up like off the chart. And I'm like, oh, holy crap. Because she's telling me how proud she is of me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Mom, you were the best mom ever. And I couldn't believe all the stuff you did and all the sacrifices you did. You were like the best mom ever. And it's like choking on the seriousness of this. In fact, the original meeting, when it was me and my brothers and my sisters in the room, my mom's like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to go on life support. I literally had to put my head between my knees. I kind of held onto the railing of the bed because I was going to pass out. Like the room started to like blink. And things are getting really weird. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to pass out. Because again, the seriousness of the situation. And I was like, holy cow. And so here I was now, just me and Mom, and I'm still kind of battling staying vertical. And so my mom, again, is telling me what she thinks of me and how proud she is of me. And she says, you're just so... And there was this awkward pause as my mom was trying to find just the right word. Now, my mom and I are silly. We always have been. My mom loved puns. And we're both very sarcastic. So there she is. She's pausing for the right word in this extremely serious deathbed speech. My mom says, you're just so neat. And because of the seriousness of the situation, we both just started laughing like, neat? Are you kidding? Okay. All right, cool. I'll take neat. There are worse things. And it was so cool that we got to laugh together. And she said, there's nobody like you. You know, I see the way you do and the way you help people and you're funny and you're always doing all this stuff for your friends. And, you're this guitar player and blah, blah, blah. And you're just neat. And so in honor of my mom on Mother's Day, I'm here to tell you, you're neat. You are. If you're thinking about doing a podcast, you're like, why would anybody ever listen to me? Because you're the only person who had your parents. You're the only person that had your brothers and sisters and your aunts and your uncles and where you lived and did you move or did you stay put? You know, did you get fired from the job or were you a good worker? Or did you go to jail or did you obey the rules or whatever it is? All those things shaped you into who you are. All the decisions from now looking back, every decision you made resulted in who you are today, and you are unique and you are neat. And I think you should start a podcast. And so did my mom. And that's kind of what she was saying, because I am painfully shy. Always have been. You get me in the right... If you get me in at PodCamp, not PodCamp, Word Camp, North Canton, I get there and everybody's there, it's like mingling, and I didn't recognize anybody. And I sat at a table with myself. How stupid is that? This is a guy, I stand up and talk in front of people every day. But get me in a room with a bunch of strangers and I will sit at a table by myself. And my mom was saying, no. You got to go out and share that. Share your neatness. Get out there and don't hide your candle under a bushel. So I'm passing that along to you. People will listen to you. You are unique. You have a whole different aspect. And I did a article for Pottertainment magazine. It'll be coming out later on this month. And I went into iTunes and I did a search. And Steve Stewart and I often trade these back and forth. Steve Stewart from moneyplansos.com. We'll find a new On Fire. We'll find a new Manure, whatever kind of show. And it's like, oh, here's another one. Yep, here's another one. And there are 25 shows that have the phrase on fire. And I'm here to say, look, you're neat. How about blowing up the podcasting blueprint and doing something completely new that hasn't been done? And that's sometimes kind of hard, but it might be something to think about. And if you go out to schoolofpodcasting.com/461, I would love your feedback on this. Is adding the phrase on fire marketing brilliance? Because when people type in on fire, they're going to find you and you'll only be competing with 25 other shows. Or is it generally a lack of creativity? And you know what? Quit being lazy and come up with something better. I would love your feedback on that. schoolofpodcasting.com/461. But one other quick little lesson of little insight into Dave here. What makes you you? My mom gave me my sense of humor. I think because when it comes down to it, you're either going to laugh or you're going to cry. And I asked my mom once, I said, I think I turned out okay. He said in his, with his ego in check at the kitchen table, I said, what was your kind of rules for raising children? And she said, whenever I could, I tried not to say no. Because unless it was going to hurt you or something like that, I just let you do it. So I was able to go to my cousin's house. I could ride my bike to my cousin's house, but I couldn't. He couldn't ride over to my house yet. He was too young. And she said, as long as you didn't give me a reason to not trust you, I would trust you. And so I always got to do things and try new things. And I think it turned out okay. And because of that, if things didn't work, I would just have fun with it and go, well, okay, I can cross that off the bucket list. And so that's who I am. I like to have fun. I like to, I call my style of teaching edutainment. And so my mom did make it. She got on the drug. The drug did work. That was the cool thing. But when they went to get her off the drug, that led to my brother walking up the driveway going, she's gone. And so there's this, again, hugely serious, awkward moment where you're in a room with your parent and they're in a coffin. And it's me and my first wife, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my dad. And we're like, nobody knows what to say because there's mom. She's in a coffin. And I went up and tapped on her arm and she felt plastic. And I was like, okay, that's not really my mom. That's just the box she came in. And it was just this, nobody knew what to say. We're all very emotional. And growing up, my mom was always in the kitchen. She was always cooking dinner. She was talking on the phone, whatever. And I'd be in the living room. I'd be in my room, whatever. And somebody would show up and she'd be like, Doug, your ride's here. Kathy, your ride's here. Hey, Dave, your ride's here. And so there we were with my mom, not knowing what to say. All of us very just being buried in the tension of the moment. And I looked out the window and there was the hearse. And I said, Mom, your ride's here. And with just a few words, the room was transformed. And we went from feeling splintered and broken to feeling like a family that could face the day and move on with just the power of words. And yes, it took the courage to go, wow, this is inappropriate to crack a joke at my mom's wake, but you know what? This seems right, and I'm going to follow my instincts here, and I'm so glad that I did. With just the power of words, you can reach out to people, and you can inspire people, and you can educate them to make them be more effective and to get more done in their life. You can help them save money and save time, and you can save time just by you doing the research, and being paid in relationships is almost as important, if not more, than being paid with money with just your words. But you have to press record. You have to get over the fear of looking stupid, the fear of I hate my voice. You have to press record because there are power. Brothers and sisters, there are power in your words. And I know you're neat. I know you're unique. I know you have something to say, and I want to help you say it. I want to help you throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. If it doesn't stick, you can cross it off the list, all right? Option number 17, start a podcast. Well, let's move that up the priority list to number 1. I want to help you start a podcast. I would love to help you start a podcast. Go out to schoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code LISTENER. That is LISTENER. That'll get you off your first month at the School of Podcasting. We've got step-by-step tutorials that'll walk you through planning your podcast, choosing the right gear so you don't spend $1,000 on gear when you only need $60 worth of gear. It's going to help you build your website. You're like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm telling you step by step how to build your own website. Yes, you can. And then how to pick a media host and how to launch it into iTunes and launch it into Stitcher. And I will be there the entire way so that if you're like, I'm not sure what to do next, send me a voicemail and we'll get you going in the right way. Pain-free podcasting is my goal. And I know today's kind of melancholy. Like I said, this is a hard day for me, even years later. But in honor of my mom, I wanted to share the fact that you are neat and you can change the world with your words. So thank you so much for listening. And I hope to see you on the inside. Take care. Until next week, class is dismissed. Oh no, did Dave do it again? Did he leave a big silence at the end? Yeah, last week, check this out. Last week, I remember how, if you listen to last week's episode, I said I redid the one section 3 times. Yeah. Well, the problem is I went back and typed up notes, which I always have notes. I had notes today, but I typed them up and used those. So I normally make my notes, my full notes, as I'm listening to the episode. Well, I didn't listen to the episode because I already had my notes. And so consequently, I had this like 10 minutes of silence at the end of the show last week. And if you heard it, you're one of 413 who did. Thanks to Josh Rivers from letting me know that, hey, Dave, you have a 10-minute Nixon tape kind of thing at the end of your podcast. And I was able to fix it, uploaded my file to Libsyn to replace it, didn't lose any of my stats, no big deal. I guess proving people liked when they hear my bloopers. That was a real blooper. That was not one that I put in afterwards for you to hear. But thanks to everyone who emailed me that says, do you know there's like 10 minutes of silence at the end of your show? And you know what? I can cross that off my bucket list. All right, I've done that. I had a big mistake in front of 413 people and lived to tell. So if you're worried about making a mistake, I just did it 413 times and I'm still here and I put out an episode this week. So enjoy.